Yo, this is the L7C here, bringing a special Yu-Gi-Oh video for you guys today. A couple days ago, I saw this and I was like, I don't think anyone else is really talking about it in depth. Just so I was like, might as well have the L7C do it. So a couple days ago, if you guys know, the Olympics are going on right now. A lot of great athletes, a lot of great games that don't get the publicity that they deserve on mainstream TV are getting their shine. Gymnastics, track, water polo, handball, things of that. Then the usual suspects, basketball, and things of that. So this was actually on the change.org site, the legit change.org where you post petitions and stuff. So if anytime you've seen a start a petition, it would come from change.org. And it was make Yu-Gi-Oh an Olympic sport. And I was very shocked by this, by a person named Zyron J. Zano. Started this petition to the IOC. They wrote, "It's an absolute injustice that the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, the trading card game, is not a legitimate sport in the Olympics. The playing of Yu-Gi-Oh requires dexterity when drawing the cards, athleticism when playing the cards, and endurance when you're in round 10 of a YCS. I call now for the International Olympic Committee to add Yu-Gi-Oh as an Olympic sport, official one, to both mend this injustice and to apologize to Japan for making them go through the 2020 Tokyo Games." And currently, right now, it has 3,919 people have signed, and they want to get to 5,000 signatures. The reason at 5,000 signatures, this petition is more likely to get picked up by local news. So it hasn't got picked up by local news yet, but it did get picked up by CBR. Most of you guys know what CBR is, comic book resource, all that. Do a whole bunch of articles on everything, pop culture and comics, video games, all that. And is right here, fan petition calls for Yu-Gi-Oh to become an official Olympic sport. Fans of elaborate combination attacks and ridiculous hairstyles are trying to get the IOC to recognize Yu-Gi-Oh as an Olympic sport. So there's its article right here. And I'll probably have links to both this and the petition below. I also have links to all the stuff that I'm using in the description box below, and talking about the playing of Yu-Gi-Oh, then the decision to host Japan to have the Olympics, talking about how it's unpopular because of COVID-19, missing any Yu-Gi-Oh representation, but Nintendo mascot Mario as well. And then this is just talking about the Yu-Gi-Oh manga being born and all of that stuff. And Yu-Gi-Oh is now regarded as one of the most successful multimedia franchises of all time. Has generated an estimated 16.8 billion US sales throughout its lifetime, with more than 9 billion of that amount coming from just the card game and the video games based off of it. So just put that in perspective. In Yu-Gi-Oh's lifetime, it has made 16.8 billion USD in sales. Just USD throughout its lifetime. 9 billion. So almost about half, over half, coming from just a card game and the video games based off of it. So there's no denying that Yu-Gi-Oh has been one of the most successful multimedia franchises. So the thing with the CBR article and the change.org petition to make Yu-Gi-Oh an Olympic sport, they don't talk about actually how does that process go for an Olympic sport to be made. So right here is how sports are chosen for the Olympics. Obviously, the Olympics have 241 to more than 10,000 competitors since it started in Athens in 1896, which is crazy. The Olympics started in 1896. So the first step for a thing to be an Olympic sport is recognition from the IOC, International Olympic Committee. The IOC requires that the activity have administration by an international non-governmental organization that oversees one sport. Once a sport is recognized, it's then moved into the International Sports Federation status. At that point, the international organization administers the sport must inform Olympic movement, anti-doping, which Yu-Gi-Oh should not have a problem with steroids or anti-doping of any of that nature. But that does include weed and stuff, so, people do smoke weed, and rules are different across the world, so they would have to watch out for that. A sport may gain IOC recognition but not become a competing event in the Olympic Games. Bowling and chess, especially chess, I think is big for anyone who is trying to make Yu-Gi-Oh an Olympic thing, because chess will probably be the closest thing that relates to kind of Yu-Gi-Oh that is a recognized sport, because it's a board game. And when I try and explain Yu-Gi-Oh to casual people who don't really know it, I just say I call it chess with monsters and traps, because you're using brain power, you're trying to be one step ahead of your opponent. So that's how I try and describe it to some people. But they're recognized sports, but they don't compete at the games. To be part of the games, the sports if must apply by minutes by filing a petition, which I guess the petition's counted here, establishing its criteria for eligibility to the IOC. So a petition was filed, like I said, with change.org, but I don't know if that meets the criteria eligible for the IOC. And also this does not have enough information for the IOC. The IOC may then admit activity into the Olympic program in one of three different ways: as a sport, as a discipline, which is a branch of a sport, or as an event, which is a competition within a discipline. Like, for instance, the triathlon was admitted as a sport in 2000. Women's wrestling is a new discipline in the sport of wrestling at the Athens Games. Women pole vaulting debuted in Sydney as a track and field event. So rules of admittance may slightly vary between a new sport discipline and all that. So that once, if that has been presented with a petition, the rules and regulations, all of that, and then in order to be accepted, the sport must be widely practiced by men in at least 75 countries and on 4 continents by women in no fewer than 40 countries in 3 continents. So the sport must also increase the value and appeal of the Olympic Games. And it has its rules. There are numerous other rules, including bans on purely mind sports and sports dependent on mechanical propulsion. These rules have kept chess, automobile racing, and other recognized sports out of the Olympic Games. And then in recent years, they've been working on different sports and things like that. So from their definition, you saw the steps, the petition, proving that 75 countries on 4 continents, and for women, no more than 40 countries, 3 continents. And I guess with Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't know how many countries do play Yu-Gi-Oh. Obviously, there's a whole bunch, if it's especially in the United States. Lifetime gross $16.8 billion. So you would have to prove that as well. And then it also said mind sports. Yu-Gi-Oh is a mind game. I know it is a money game too. You do have to sometimes pay to win, buying the best cards, which are usually the most expensive ones. But it is a mind game on mechanical propulsion. I don't think that characterizes for Yu-Gi-Oh. They've kept chess out. That's the biggest thing, because chess is the closest thing in this definition that we have that we can relate to Yu-Gi-Oh. And then it talks about like tug of war, for example. So if we just go back to the beginning. So I think with that, so getting it recognized, I think it could get recognized if chess has been recognized. You can get it recognized, but I don't think it'll be at the games per se. I think what you would need to do first to get Yu-Gi-Oh into the Olympics, if you go back to this one, where the 3 different ways: as a sport, as a discipline, which is then a branch of a sport, or as an event, which is a competition within a discipline. So what you would have to do, to me, and reading and analyzing this, which I've had for the past couple days, is you would have to get esports as the sport, and then like in the discipline of esports, your discipline is Yu-Gi-Oh, and then which is a branch of an event. And then you could, if you want to go real ballsy, you can have the esport, everything is under the esport bracket, then Yu-Gi-Oh is your discipline, and the event of the discipline, let's just say a Omega World Championship. Imagine a Super World Championship hosted the Olympics with everyone in the world being able to watch and go. And the reason I say esports is for the next couple things. One, esports, this is from Newzoo. esports industry revenue is expected to surpass 1 billion in just 2021. The leading provider of games and esports analytics just said they'll amass 1 billion in 2021. That is more than a 14% growth of esport industry, which has generated 947 million in revenue last year. So esports, we all know, it's people used to joke about it many, many years ago, but it's real now. It's here to stay. It's one of the biggest followed things in the world. It's one of the biggest cash things now in the world. So many people are playing more video games than they did 10 years ago and on computers and getting the new systems. There's a reason that PS5s are still sold out to this day, and you can't get one if you're a normal person. So why I say the esports and Yu-Gi-Oh is when we go to the next thing that was announced a couple days ago was when they talked about Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel. Obviously, we don't know the full details of Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel. But we know that it's coming out on PlayStation 4 or 5, both the Xboxes, Nintendo right here, PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, Stream, iOS, and Android. And for the first time ever for a Yu-Gi-Oh title, it features a stunning 4K graphics on supported devices. So it's coming out on everything, which means it's going to be cross-play, which means even if you don't have a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox, you can play it on your on Steam or on iOS and Android, which makes it super cool. Still waiting for the details to come out on that, but this would be the closest thing that Konami and Yu-Gi-Oh would be able to really establish itself in the esports genre. I know a lot of people have talked about Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and the potential, especially with the esports thing, and they're trying to make this serious because they want this at the World Championship. There's still plenty of details we need to know about getting the cards, etc., etc. But if for Yu-Gi-Oh, I think to be an Olympic sport, it has to go through the esport route. So with that being said, esports in general would need to be an Olympic sport. And then the discipline, you could have a whole bunch of disciplines within that esports. So disciplines, if you're doing fighting games, shooting games, or card games, things like that, then Yu-Gi-Oh! Would be the discipline, and then the event would be the Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship or whatever. And there was another thing that they were talking about: the sport must also increase the value and appeal of the Olympic Games and retain and reflect on modern traditions. There's nothing more modern right now than video games. And if there is, please drop a comment below and let me know. So if they want to keep up with the times, because more and more people are going the esports route. There are colleges, universities that have esports classes. There are esports teams at colleges and universities competing against each other across the world. There are professional esports, video gamers, Twitch streamers, all of that. There's nothing more modern in sport right now than esports. So I feel like in the next 10 to 20 years, they're really going to have to look and capitalize on getting these type of games, esports, so then you can get the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and stuff in there, so that then they're getting more of the audience. Because if you look at kids now, I mean, it's not the days where you're watching like cartoons and stuff on TV. You're watching your favorite YouTuber play video games on YouTube, or you're watching your favorite gamer on Twitch play games. What better way to get more people to watch the Olympics, the younger crowd, than getting esports involved? And then with the esports, then you try and put Yu-Gi-Oh! As a discipline. That's how you do it. I just don't see. And then also, I mean, obviously, if they check the market with Yu-Gi-Oh!, there's so many content creators out there. MClo40, obviously Team APS, Team Samurai, Farfa, Triff. Like, there's just so many of them who cover Yu-Gi-Oh! And have such a big fan base that MSTV, MBT, like all of them, SEMO, like all of them cover Yu-Gi-Oh! So extensively that they would get the buzz around and people would be really excited. You already see that Yu-Gi-Oh! Makes a ton of money and is a very popular game. And then putting it on the Olympic stage would just make it even more popular, more money for Konami, more money for content creators because they're going to be making a ton of videos on it and they'll be covering it, and more money and coverage for the Olympics because you add that dimension to the Olympics. The Olympics are all about showcasing things that don't get that much attention, but they also want to increase value and appeal. There's no better way than adding Yu-Gi-Oh! Through esports. So again, the way that Yu-Gi-Oh! Would ever get to become an Olympic sport is first, esports in general, which I don't know the governing body of esports. That's probably going to be a little harder to find, but you get a governing body of that. They have to file to be an Olympic sport. Once they file, and then if they get all the stuff, then they make disciplines. And then they have card game, shooting games, sports, fighting. Then you branch off from disciplines. You get the card game one. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is one of the best known card games in the world. Then Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a card game through Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. So Master Duel has to be super successful and have a big following and really explode onto the video gaming world with Twitch, YouTube, and people playing it, which, I mean, I will be playing it when it comes out. So then you go through there. Then you have Yu-Gi-Oh! And esports in general as an Olympic sport. So yeah, that's really my video. I'm going to have all these links in the description box. But I was shocked seeing make Yu-Gi-Oh! An Olympic sport. I do like the idea, but I just don't think it needs to be. I would love for Yu-Gi-Oh! To be an Olympic sport, but Yu-Gi-Oh! By itself wouldn't be able to do it unless Konami really got behind it, because they'd be the governing body, but they would need to get a lot of things done within itself just for that to happen. The easiest way to make Yu-Gi-Oh! An Olympic sport is obviously the petition, which is close to 5K, but make esports in general, get all the big esports markets right now, make one governing body, have them file, then they make the disciplines, then the games will come to them. Yu-Gi-Oh! Will be a discipline like the card game, esports, and then make Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel the esport game at the Olympics. I would love to have the cards like in person, because I don't think there's anything better than playing in person, but I think Master Duel will be the easiest route. And then we could add, then if you're getting real fancy, you can have Master Duel Olympic part because you specialize in that in the video game, or you do the in-person one. And if you did in-person at the Olympics, cards would skyrocket in price. With that being said, this was a little fun one I wanted to do because it was so interesting seeing this pop up and then seeing this pop up on my feed. I did sign the petition because, Team Yu-Gi-Oh! Over here on the L7C. But with that being said, thank y'all for listening to the L7C podcast. Sorry, I get used to saying that. Thank y'all for listening to the L7C Yu-Gi-Oh! Video. You guys take care and let us know, would you compete if Yu-Gi-Oh! Was an Olympic sport? Take care.